Greetings one and all. I hope you're well. I've decided to make this video because of experiences I've had recently round at Angela's place in a previous video you might have seen. And I'm calling this the singer voiceover artist's front end. By that I mean this little cockpit in which I work, which is the microphone, the interface which feeds the headphones, and there I am. Maybe I get closer to the mic because I want that, but I need to be able to hear what I'm doing. Or maybe I move a bit further away from the mic and you can hear a bit of the room comes into play there maybe. This is my little area. Seeing as a lot of us have been working from home, maybe doing voiceover stuff or maybe tracking, and at Angela's, she had some questions that led me to think about this, and this is my advice then for the kind of equipment you might get. Now, if you'll bear with me, I'd like to talk about the days of hi-fi when I was into it. Not so long ago and not so far away. And as I was reading and trying to, on a budget, get my gear together, I remember Hi-Fi News and those magazines and ones which I've forgotten, which no longer exist, some of them. They would say that spend most of your budget on the source, meaning the cartridge, arm, and deck. 3 different things really. Some of them the arm came with the deck, but we're talking about 3 things already. But really that, with the emphasis on the cartridge, the thing that's actually going to touch the record, or if it's a CD player, they'd mean the CD player. But I never liked CDs. And now they've more or less disappeared. And that thing that touches a record, they're saying, the weighting of your money, put it towards that. Because if that doesn't pick up, or if that distorts, or whatever, then the rest of the signal chain, no hope. So spend more of the money on the source. Next, they'd say the amplifier. And finally, they'd say, well, whatever speakers you can afford at the end of all that, and then you can upgrade them later. I understand the thinking behind that, but here's something. I always found the result more enjoyable in the room with better speakers. One of the things they're saying, if you've got good speakers that are clear, then you're clearly going to hear the bad stuff at the front end, which I get. So my actual balance ended up being as good a front end really as I could. Yes, try to get a good cartridge, because if you miss tracks and skips, and just forget it. So try to get a good cartridge. And then the arm and the deck, of course, they need to be balanced with each other in that I think if you've got a heavy arm, then you need a high compliance cartridge. If you've got the old school light arms, then you need a low compliance cartridge, otherwise things don't match. You've got to kind of match them up. Then I had a kind of amplifier. It was kind of any old amplifier really. And then I built the first lot of speakers myself. They were okay actually. And then the speakers. Also, I should say, because I like the physicality of those things, I can understand it. I'm that type of person. I can see what's happening and say, oh yeah, that's doing that, that's that. And the amplifier's not so interesting. But I have found, and still do, that the electronics, cheap electronics, sound-wise, are okay generally. It's the transducers, the ones that have to change it from physical into electric, and then from electronic back into physical. That's a different kettle of fish. And they, have a harder time. So that's where it came from in the hi-fi days, and I ended up with, I like my speakers, I like my front end, and the amp would do. Now, let me relate that to this front end that we're using here. My balance here is slightly different from the hi-fi, partly because this here not only is my own cockpit of doing stuff, but the result is going to be recorded. Whereas when I was listening to my hi-fi, that was it. I was in my cockpit with my records and that was it. But this one's being recorded as well, so that result is paramount. The balance I have here then, I would suggest, is mic first. Once again, interface needs to be adequate. And most modern ones I've found, I've done some testing with lowish budget, low mid-range ones, which I use. I haven't used any high range ones. But even the low mid-range, pretty good these days, it seems to me, as listening. And then, nice headphones. These aren't. I regret buying them, not knocking them. They were cheap. I bought them for school. They'd be knocked around and all over the place, but I'm thinking, no, a false economy. Because this is the world I'm in, and I can hear now. It's sort of not nice. I want it to be nice. So my suggestion would be mic first, interface, and then good headphones. Because Angela's, when I used them, I thought, they're well known. They were the Beyerdynamic DT100s, but they sounded compared to nicer headphones. Why? Have a nice sound in your head because it inspires you. Let me go through the mics then, if I may. Sorry if this gets a bit long, but I'm only going to do it once. Now, the microphones, you've got problems. First of all, I'd say from my experience, a dynamic doesn't really cut it. You might be able to get away with something like a Beyerdynamic M88 and some others, but once you've heard the openness of maybe a ribbon, I like ribbons, got to do some exploration yet. So we're left really with condensers. Now, which one? In researching this, I just so happens I bought a Sound on Sound magazine, a reputable, highly regarded audio magazine in this country, do studio stuff. And would you believe it? They were reviewing an Audio Technica 80S99, which cost £280. The frequency response is from 60 hertz to 16 kilohertz. They don't say that within what dB, so it's going to be less than that, really. Whatever people put there, it's not going to be more. It's going to be less. But I'm thinking already, 60 to 16? Well, but 60 down the low end. I mean, my lowest notes, if I want to use them for what am I doing? If you're doing a voiceover or something, I want some of that. It's going to be down in the upper 50s. So you're already robbing me of that. And then I found myself thinking, how come this is 2023 and that Beyerdynamic M88 goes from 30 hertz to 20 kilohertz? Okay, let's say a little bit less, shall we? Because it tails off. But 30 to 20 with a bit of boasting. And this, 60 to 16 with a bit of boasting. And this is 2023. And that was 1962. What else do they say? It's got dual presence humps, 4.5k, sorry, and 10k, about 5 dB plus. So that's going to be noticeable. And then a little bump before it starts rolling off of about 2 dB, which you may or may not notice. It is a live mic, but I'm just showing you, it's clearly got a shape. I haven't even heard it. I'm looking at that and thinking, well, it won't do for me because it's got no low end. But you know something? If something's got a bit too much low end, you know what I do? I just reach to the desk and put the 100 hertz cut that almost any desk has got. If it hasn't got that or it's in the wrong place, then I reach over to the desk, it's getting a bit boomy, and I just turn the bass down. And it's gone. Or, I tell you what, I'm using an old laptop here. I've got Cakewalk by BandLab. Absolutely fine for me. And it's free. Great. And you wouldn't believe the EQ possibilities there are in that. So why not leave me flat? So I can do what I want with the magic we've got these days. I just don't really get it. Maybe it's they simply can't make a mic without that. So try and make a virtue out of a failing, perhaps. Oh, look, it's come out all a bit lumpy and spiky. Never mind, let's call that powerful. I don't know. I'm not knocking Audio Technica, just saying. All right, you wouldn't use that anyway. It's $280, it's quite expensive for a dynamic. Next is Tierra Audio. Tierra, from Spain. Oh yeah, I'm going to go to Spain. Again, I was 3 years old when I went there before, and I can't remember it. But anyway, Tierra Audio, and it's called New 20s, and it looks, £1,006. What they say, Sound on Sound, is there's a low-end roll-off. Here we go again. And I've got low-end roll-offs on the desk, anywhere. Why are you rolling it off in the mic? What if you've got a low voice? What are you trying to do? I don't get it. Begins at around 100 hertz. Have mercy. And steep from 50 hertz, which means that's going to affect either a bit above that as well. So it also rolls off the very high frequencies in a similar way to a modern ribbon. Then it's got later on in the review, it says saturated mid-range. Well, not surprised, is it? Because the bass is gone and you've rolled off the top, so you only got the mid-range left, really, so it's going to be elevated. So, the mic thing, what can I suggest? Here's what I suggest to you. Just my suggestion, particularly VoiceOver, because you can do so much in post. Fantastic stuff now, much more elaborate than you can engineer into any mic as far as I can see. I'm thinking flat, extended, and fast. It's flat frequency response because you can easily do stuff with it later, but it's not so easy once you've got a higgledy-piggledy thing you're trying to sort out. Extended because you can truncate that if you want. You can get rid of the high end, you can get rid of the low end. So at school there, practicing next door, having a lesson. And then fast because maybe I want to have some of that, you know. Maybe I'm doing stuff like that if it's a voiceover. Or even in summer you're singing. Or even in summer you're singing. Come on, and even in summer you're singing. And even in summer you're singing. Oh, and even in summer you go. And even in summer. Oh, no. Got carried away there. Okay. I don't know what to recommend. As you know, I'm lucky because I've been sent the Earthworks mics. Thank you, Earthworks. But they fulfill that to me. I would think an Ethos will do you for singing as well, not for stage, of course. This, if you want for stage and voiceover and recording. This, you can always remove this grill and put if you want that extra something. You might need a little bit of foam if you're quite clumsy to help with the pops. All-rounder will do it for you. It's got a little bit of a lift at the top, but it's not much, as you can hear. A little bit there, a little bit of what I call mascara, but it's reasonably flat, and it's not, not too much, so you can get rid of that if you want without too much of a pain with the EQ. The Ethos is flatter, and of course the SV33, but I don't think I'm making that anymore. For me, is the king. But you wouldn't use it for live, so you've got to think. So I'm thinking those that do. I did have a DPA that was fast, but it wasn't flat. It was flat. I got the linear meant to be flat, but it was flat at the top without too much of that stuff. But the low end just wasn't there, so I couldn't use it for the kind of stuff I just been doing there. The kind of stuff I just been doing there. I couldn't use it for that because the bass wouldn't be there. So have a little look around. Again, I think a condenser mic, extended frequency response, we can always get rid of. Flat frequency response, we can always alter. And fast. So the details there. So like my cartridge on tracking them vinyls, I've picked up everything to begin with. Let me move on. The next thing then, the audio interface. A few things to watch out for. Most of the mid-range ones, it seems to me that I've only had experience of mid-range really. They seem fine, but at Angela's we did have an issue. And the issue was with her SM7B, without, just as is, she had to have it right at the top, and it was a little bit noisy. She bought herself a FET head, if you've seen the video I've just done, which boosts it, and with the FET head in, even with the audio interface on 0 on the dial, it was going into the orange, which was okay, but it's not ideal really, is it? It makes you wonder, is it overdriving that circuitry, even if it's only going to the orange? How accurate is that light? It must be a lot for the circuitry for it to be on 0 and going into the orange. Can't be in its comfort zone, I wouldn't have thought. So again, with your interface, you're going to need maybe to match it with the mic, the same way that when you've got your record arm, you need to have the right compliance cartridge which balances with whether you've got a heavy arm or whether you've got one of the old school lighter arms, and some of them are coming back with lighter arms. There's a little bit of something that goes on, and sometimes there can be a little bit of something called synergy, which means everything you've got just so happens to work well together and is like, woof, then you're going to stay with that. Or you might find it's okay. Most you're going to find it's okay, it's fine. You might get, but you might have problems, as I say, with the mic and the interface. I wouldn't expect much, but we did see that at Angela's. The Earthworks mics were fine. They were within tolerance. I put it away. But to give you some, and my biodynamic ribbon needed to be right up the top without, I tried the FET head on that, and that put it in a nice place. I might get one, I don't know, we'll see. Incidentally, the thing I put away here is TC Helicon Perform V, and that has a sensitivity gain thing that you set. And with these, it's on 2 bars. I'm not sure the right way around for you. 2 bars, 1 to 2 bars. So that's off. Then it's got 1 or 2 bars, and it goes all the way around. So on these, you'll be on 2 to 3 bars. It's fine, and it just about gets orange, sometimes into the red. And when I use my Biodynamic M500, I have to have it right the way around there. And it can get a bit noisy. Just to give you an idea that the difference between these are quite a powerful output, the Biodynamic ribbon is a low output, so it's right at the extremes. This sits okay though. Maybe if you've got that old school ribbon, you might need a FET head with it. But just make sure it works. Can your interface handle a mic? We've just been that. FET head on the orange, I've just been through that. Earthwork is good. Mic, match and interface, I suggest. So, we're not done though. Why is that? It says by chance I used Angela's DT100s, so now we're moving on to the headphones. And I was taken aback by the dull, muddy sound. Okay, the DT100s, I don't know if hers were faulty or it could have been to do with the interface coming up to it. But as I remember them from back in the day, and actually I was reminded of the sound of being in studios in the 80s and 70s. I think they're the same sort of thing. And they're meant to be tough. I think every bit's replaceable. They're meant to be able to, in the studio, get dropped on the floor 100 times. They're probably getting from a powerful desk, sending a big signal. It's like, oh, that's too loud. They're tough in that sense. It doesn't blow them. If you had fine, delicate things, you can imagine a studio would be going through them, and even if bits were replaceable, you'd have to have a whole stock. So I think that's the idea of the DT100. So I'm not knocking them, but I was really underwhelmed when I put them on. Really, I thought, oh. And that's what made me think, why not have a nice cockpit, a nice environment? I know the headphones don't make any difference to the actual output, but they make a difference to my input, which makes a difference to my output, because I want to start doing stuff. Even when I was doing that breathy stuff, earlier, I noticed that I can't really, it's like mud because of these. They're 12 quid or something. So I'd say a mistake. Not knocking them, but because they're cheap and cheerful, but no, false economy. So, part of the problem with our DT100s, I don't know what ohms they were. As if you haven't got enough to bother. You couldn't get them loud enough. So again, often with bus-driven interfaces, their headphone amp don't got no muscle. Just haven't got the electricity supply for it. So you need to match your headphones then with your interface. What we ended up doing is I got I think it's a head amp, which has got 4 outputs for headphones, so you can have different mixes. So you take it from the audio interface into that, and then that splits it. It's got a little amplifier inside, so you can have 4 different mixes, but it also provides some gain. So we used that with her DT100s, and that did drive them sufficiently. But it's a lot of faff, isn't it? You don't really have that as well, and the extra cable, and it's got a main supply, and then you've got a right. You just want your cockpit. You want it to be nice, and your interface handles your mic nicely, and your interface can drive your lovely loud speakers, headphones nicely. One of the things about the DT100 and why she got them, because she has got the others that I use, if you've seen on my other videos at home with Gray, they're Bayer. I think they are, are they DT250? I can't remember what they are. But I said, well, why don't you use those? And she said, yeah, but listen to the track. Yes, and she's right. Through the vocal mic, you could hear. So there was spill. The DT100s, woof, no spill. So you need to consider that as well with your headphones to get things right. Spend the money and get it right, because it's your cockpit, and you're going to sit there and you're going to do your thing hour after hour. Comfort as well. Is that it? Oh, yeah. She's an industry standard girl I've got down there, because all these things are asked her, why have you got the Shure SM7B, which is kind of adequate, but it's not very exciting for what she was doing. Why have you got that? Oh, I think we should go. And one of the things she was looking at earlier was she's got an SM58. So why have you got an SM58? Oh, people told me. That's when we're looking for a different mic. And I'm noticing, why have you got the DT100? Oh, because someone told me that's what. So isn't it interesting that these industry standard things, I haven't found any of them to be particularly pleasing to me, and yet here they are lumbering on decade after decade, and no one seems to question. Wait a minute. Well, maybe it's just me. So she's an industry standard girl, though I'm changing her slowly. What's this say? Tough, replaceable, yeah, about those headphones. This is what I put here. I want a gorgeous sound when tracking. Why not? It's 2023. I want it to be gorgeous, lovely, big, delicate, so I can get into it. Why not? So it keeps me positive and enjoying the experience. They're about done. Mic first, make sure the interface can handle the mic easily. Also, does the interface have sufficient recording quality? Because it's not just about our cockpit here, is it? Remember, it's also about the end result there, which is the headphones only make a difference in sort of feedback to you. The interface, of course, is, and the mic and the interface is, because we're going to have that right up and lots of hiss and blah, blah, blah. So I'd say spend your time, good evidence, sufficient and comfort. I think that's about it. So how might you practically, in a practical sense, go about this? Well, you see, if you get the good mic, I was going to say you don't really need to try it out. If we had a perfect mic, doesn't exist, but if we had a perfect mic, fully extended in terms of frequency response, totally flat in terms of frequency response, and fast, and with the necessary pop, start and handling stuff depending on what you're using it for, then you wouldn't need to try it out, because it would sound just like your voice. So what are you going to try it out for? You can stand somewhere in with a reflective surface, because obviously when you're talking you hear your voice through this, but it would sound like your voice as other people hear it. Simple as that. And you can add stuff if you want later, we know that. So therefore, but if you've got a shaped mic, like this one, this Audio Technica, so drops off under 60, got a peak at 4.5, another peak at 10, and then rise at 2 dB just before falling off at the low end. What's that going to sound like on your voice? Any idea? I don't know how it would sound on mine. Well, I know the low end wouldn't be there, but that little hump higher up, is that going to give me a bit of that? I don't know. Oh dear, it's like that, isn't it? What about those at the top there? Is it going to make me sound like that? Is that four? Is that about 4? Maybe it is. And it's got something at the top there, so maybe it's some of those things are going to come out more. I've got to try it. Perfect mic, I don't have to try. All these other thousands of mics now, sorry, you're going to have to try, because your voice has got its own shape, and just because Fred Bloggs says it's the best mic in the world, it's fantastic, and it's been around in Germany with a valve since da-da-da-da, but on whose voice? Or does it just smear everybody's voice with something which people think is pleasing? I think intelligence here, really, let's just stop and be intelligent about it, and then so you don't waste your money. So I'm thinking you can't go wrong with extended, flat and fast. Interface. Next, make sure your mic works with that interface. Still keep a question mark over the interface because you've got to add the loud headphones yet. Does have interface provide everything that you want? I'm thinking a good mid-range one, unless you want super quality, fine, go for it. But we're talking us working people probably. The Focusrites seem fine to me. They won't drive difficult headphones. So you might have to make some compromises there in the headphones. I don't know. So make sure the interface has got everything and it works well with the mic. Then your headphones. Choosing headphones is as difficult as choosing a mic. I don't know. I'm going to leave that one up to you because I haven't really gone through it, and I was into biodynamic mics actually, which is why I bought the biodynamic headphones. So guess how stupid is that? So I leave that up to you, but that's the best I can offer you. And I would have thought easily under £1,000. That sounds a lot, I know. Let me think again. Difficulty if you want this kind of a mic. You're knocking around 500 to begin with. But interface a couple of hundred. Headphones a couple of hundred maybe. Second hand, you may do a lot better. But that's not an awful lot for good stuff, which makes you go for a lovely cockpit. And you're sitting there and you think, yeah, okay. That's enough. See you next time. Keep well.